You're listening to Part 3 of a Barefoot Lawyer Reports interview with human rights activist Kay Rubacek. To listen to Parts 1 and 2, check the link in the description.
Chen Guangcheng is a follower of Chinese traditional culture, and one of the things I think that is most horrible for him is how communism is destroying this Chinese traditional culture. As you said, it has elements of all kinds of things, Confucianism, Buddhism, and other things, but it's just being ripped away in a foreign import of Marxism, which has really done nobody any good wherever it took root. And I think that it's very important for young people, and we hope this podcast is being circulated to more and more young people, to realize that if you don't have political structures that recognize and respect the dignity of each human being, and in the law, if you don't have, as Guangcheng will talk about a lot, the rule of law. In China, you have no rule of law. You have the lawlessness. You have the rule of no law, because a communist official can do whatever they want to. The rule of law subjects everyone, whether you're a government official or the lowest peasant, or the lowest laborer, the poorest person or the richest person, to the same rules. And it's always hard to meet that standard, but that's the standard in Western democracies that we try to meet, that we hold each other accountable to. And the reason is because it ensures respect for the dignity of the human person. So I think young people who are lucky enough or blessed enough to live in countries with these democratic institutions, including America, should appreciate it and expand their horizons to understand the hell they would have to live through if they were in China or some other country under totalitarian communism.
I think that's a really key point, because with under communism in Soviet Russia, Stalin and Lenin both talked about how important it is to indoctrinate the youth, and that's what they focused on doing, was really trying to destroy the core of society, the family unit and faith and things like that, so that the state would become the god, the faith for all society under a communist or socialist society, and that would replace the concept of dignity of human beings, and that's been extended over this past century now, and I think that this is concern for youth is. I have two children. I have two teenagers now, and I had them after I came back from my arrest in China, where I was naive and ignorant at the time of really what was going on there, and I learned so much through that experience, and I realized that I could have been making other films and documentaries that could have had greater success in say Hollywood circles or things like that. Instead, I've received extreme censorship and real challenges for funding and things like that, because the Chinese Communist Party has so many ties throughout industries in the US, and tries to prevent these true stories from the Chinese people being told, as Chen Guangcheng knows better than me. So I think, but knowing what my family went through, having to escape communism twice, plus my husband's family having to escape as well, I want my children to know the evils of communism, know the dangers, and to not have to run again, because there really is nowhere else to run. There are fewer and fewer places to run to in our global world, so we really have to value what we have. And that's been a real driver for me and my work. And people like Chen Guangcheng have real aspirations to see people to see Chinese people and and I've had the wonderful opportunity to interview so many of them, and so many survivors and dissidents and people brave who have survived far worse than what I went through. And it's just such an inspiration. I think if more of us can recognize the similarities that we have as fellow human beings, rather than seeing differences in culture or nationality, then I think we can just learn so much from each other in our shared stories and shared experiences, and that will help the next generation learn from that. So I mean, that's really a big driver for me, is being able to tell the stories of these people and try to be a bridge between cultures, and hope that that rubs off on my children and their generation.
Yeah, that's wonderful work. We have had some editions of the Barefoot Lawyer podcast. We've had a whole series where we have talked about Chinese democracy advocates in China who have suffered in various ways for that, including lawyers such as Gao Zhizhen, who has disappeared into the black jails and hasn't been heard from in 6 years. Nobody knows whether he's dead or alive, or what has happened to him. And I think it's important to tell those stories for all the reasons you said. I think it's also important for again, Americans to realize that you can't do that kind of stuff here in America. So, you have something special here, and you better fight for it, because as you indicated just a second ago, we should be seeing major films about, fictionalized, but, drama, even made more dramatic through fiction and things, movies about this. Why don't we? Because Hollywood is afraid of communist China. I mean, it's sad, but they're afraid. So there's been no major film made of Guangcheng, his struggle, and his incredible, literally, I mean, miraculous escape from China. It's impossible, but he did. But they won't do it because they're afraid of the communists. And when Americans need to listen, when you will not speak up for the truth in the face of totalitarianism, you are giving away your birthright, and you're giving away what it means to be a human being. Kay, what else would you like to share with the listeners?
I think it's really having more stories, and we touched on the Hollywood aspect, and I think it's really encouraging. As much as there's a lot of discouraging news in relation to human rights in China and things like that, and people saying, oh, it doesn't change, I actually see a lot of things changing, and I see a lot of hope. From even outside of the Hollywood community, for example, there's more and more films being made independently, and the quality's getting higher and higher all the time. So I would, I really believe that at some point we're going to get the Chen Guangcheng story. We're going to see that on the big screen. We're going to see more stories like that, and I'm noticing that there's a lot more interest in China and what's going on there than there ever was, say, a decade ago. I think COVID played a big role in that, for sure. People started to see what was going on, the fact that we've sent so much of our manufacturing to China, and that's harmed many of our businesses, and also the fentanyl being brought through the southern border, with the precursors being made in China and being taught to drug lords to create the deadly drug, bringing it in. So as bad as that sounds, the fact is that is awakening people to the fact that there is an issue that we must pay attention. Americans need to pay attention, because it is hitting your home now through TikTok apps that are targeting our children, and drugs and all of these things. It's hitting home now, and I think that we will reach a tipping point where people say, no, we don't want communism here, and we don't want the control from the Chinese Communist Party. It is time to say no. So I think we're getting to that point, which gives me a lot of hope and encouragement. And having followed this for a few decades now, I can say there's been a lot of difficult times when no one would pay attention. But now there is more. At every event I do, I see more and more people coming than in past years when it was very difficult to get attention and get an audience. But now people are really interested. So it gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, here at the university, we have had students who, in fact, wanted to go and protest at the communist embassy here in D.C. in order to let them know that they oppose these things. So I hope that you are right, that people are beginning to wake up. I think that somehow the plight of the Uyghurs seems to have caught a little more attention than the plight of some other groups that have been ill-treated, like the Tibetans and the Falun Gong. And hopefully, if I'm right, hopefully that leads to more and more people being aware of the extent of the abuses of human rights in China. And also I think if people start to wake up, it's like you were saying, they're going to ask themselves, well, why haven't we heard about this before? And so they'll begin to get a sense of the influence the Chinese Communist Party has had in America, and hopefully then will tell their political leaders to stand against it.
I hope so too. Yeah, I think we're heading there.
Well, that's a good place to end this broadcast of the Barefoot Lawyer Reports, and we appreciate you being with us, Kay. And I encourage anyone listening to check out her book, Who Are China's Walking Dead, and to look for the documentary Hard to Believe. Although, as we said, they kind of deal with very tough issues, but you can't do the right thing until you know the truth about things, and you can find them there.
And if I can just briefly add, even though it is a gruesome topic, we didn't treat the movie in any gruesome way. This movie even aired on PBS, so it is family friendly. As hard to believe as it is, we didn't go into. There's no blood and gore. It's not a horror film, and my book, I think people have said there is a sense of humor through there that gets you through, because as sad as some of the stories are, there is hope at the end. So I just add that as a caveat, that it's not all doom and gloom movies and books.
Yeah. Well, those are very important stories. I think we have to understand what's going on in China and what communism does to people, so that it can be resisted wherever it rears its head, whether it's in Australia or America or any other place. So again, this is we appreciate you being with us and sharing all your experiences dealing with this subject. And I invite the listeners, again, go in our archives and you can find the stories of previous episodes we did on democracy advocates in China. You can find various interviews having to do with communism itself and why it turns it into this thing that brutalizes human beings, both those who practice it and those who are the victims of it. And you can also we'll soon have a series of podcasts with an artist from China who's now in California, named Wei Ming, who has a sculpture park out in California dedicated to showing what happened in Tiananmen Square and other places. So until then, we look forward to seeing you again on another broadcast of the Barefoot Lawyer Reports.
The Barefoot Lawyer Reports recommends our listeners check out CNBC's recent documentary titled China's Corporate Spy War, which addresses the subject of international property and technology theft by the Communist Party waged on American corporations. To learn more about this documentary, visit cnbc.com.